Hi, welcome back. We are going to start talking about the definition of ethics today. And so we'll look at this handout on ethics and we'll go over it. There are several questions on this handout that I would like you to know. First, what is the definition of ethics? Second, what are the three main concepts in ethics? That's number 2. And we're going to talk about the formal features of the good and the necessary conditions for morality. So 4 questions will come from this handout, and each section has a number next to it to help you. So let's talk about the first topic, a definition of ethics. We've been loosely saying that ethics is the area of philosophy that asks the question, what ought I to do? What is my moral obligation? And there's a related question, what is the good life? So the formal definition we're going to use is here. Ethics is concerned with giving a rational justification for the answer to the question, what is the good? So rational justification is giving reasons for the way we answer the question, what is the good? So if I say, happiness is the good, the rational justification would be answering why happiness is the good. So I want you to know that definition. Ethics is concerned with giving a rational justification for the answer to the question, what is the good? Now, rational justification is involved with reason giving. It's not psychological justification because I like it, because it feels good, and it's not practical justification. It works for me. We want rational justification. And that's what ethics as an aspect of philosophy is looking for. We want knowledge of the good. Okay, now the second part of the question I'll ask is, what does ethics assume? And remember our rational presuppositional approach where we're going back to what is more basic. That's what we're doing here. Ethics assumes choice. People make choices, right? So that's up here. Everyone makes choices. You made choices today. You chose to turn this video on. Ethics assumes choice. Choice behind your choices assumes values. You valued one thing over another. You valued watching this video over watching maybe your English class video. Choice assumes values. Values assumes a concept of the good, which is the highest value. Now, I will even say behind your concept of the good is your concept of what is real, and behind your concept of what is real is your concept of how we know things. So remember the house? So you can see choice is pretty obvious. We all make choices, but is it obvious what our view of the good is? We can look at our choices and see what we value and what we value the highest and figure out our own view of the good. So I want you to know that ethics is concerned with giving rational justification for the answer to the question, what is the good? Ethics assumes choice. Choice assumes values, and values assumes the concept of the good. So values are like worth, things that are of worth, and the good is the highest worth, what is most worthy. What is particularly sought in ethics is rational justification. So we're going to see a number of different ethical theories. We should be asking, did they provide rational justification for promoting this view of the good in this theory? Now, I'm going to move on to the 3 main concepts of ethics. And we get these 3 main concepts from Aristotle in his book. Aristotle's a philosopher. I should back up a minute. Aristotle is a student of Plato. Plato was a student of Socrates. They all kind of started this discussion about ethics, but Aristotle wrote the textbook. It's called the Nicomachean Ethics. And in this book, he gives us the 3 main concepts of ethics, but he doesn't give us a lot of direction about how these concepts are ordered. So we have to think about them and order them based on what they mean. Okay, so the main concepts of ethics are the good, virtue, and happiness. And we're going to find out that most of the ethical theories we look at fall under these categories. I will call them teleological, goal-oriented, the good-oriented, deontological, virtue-oriented or duty-oriented, and consequentialist, which is happiness or pleasure-oriented views of ethics. So we have these three main concepts, and those concepts give us the different views of how to do ethics. But they don't all provide rational justification. So we can say, okay, here are these theories, but why should I follow one of them? So that's the rational justification part. Why should I follow that theory? Have they provided good reasons? Okay, so let's talk about these three main concepts. I want you to know the definition of each for the rest of your life. All right, the good. This is the driving concept, the main concept in ethics. So if we were to order these, the good is the most basic. It's at the bottom. And then virtue is going to be second, and then happiness is going to be less basic. So the good is the most basic concept in ethics. The good, here's a formal definition. This is from Aristotle. The good is what is sought as an end in itself. So it's an end in itself, for its own sake and not for the sake of something else. So we seek the good because it is the good, not because it's going to get us something else. So think of the end as the goal. Sometimes when I go over this, I talk about my students have a goal to finish this class. And I might say, why did you take this class? And you might say, I took this class so I can get a humanities credit. And I might say, why do you need a humanities credit? And you say, well, I need it for my degree program. Why do you need a degree? Well, so I could get a certain job. Why do you need a certain job? So I can get money. Okay, what are you going to do with the money? I'm going to buy stuff. And then what? What's after that? So you can see these are not ends in itself. Taking this class could be an end in itself, or it could be a means to something else, or it could be both an end in itself in one respect and a means to an end in another respect. For example, you can say, well, I'm taking ethics because I just want to know what the good is. And when I know what the good is, I'll be happy. That would be an end in itself, right? But if you're taking the class to get credits, that's a means to something else. So you could say, I'm doing it for knowledge and for credits. That would be great, right? That's true double dipping. Okay, so the good is what is sought as an end in itself, for its own sake, not for the sake of something else. And then it says it is clear what cannot be sought for its own sake and what can be. So let's consider this. Can you seek money as an end in itself? What is money? Money is a placeholder for the exchange of values. So money is a means for purchasing something else that is of value. So money is not an end in itself. It's a means to something else. So I'll let you think about what can be sought as an end in itself. My professor asked my class when I was a student, why do you look at a sunset? Is there anything you're going to get out of it? Is it a utilitarian thing, or is it because it's just beautiful? So that would be something that's kind of an end in itself. You look at a sunset because it's beautiful. It's a sunset. You're not getting anything out of it. So the good is an end in itself. You seek it because it's the good. Okay, as we go along, we will talk more about what can and cannot be sought as an end in itself. So if you're wondering, I need an answer to that, we will work it out as we go along. Okay, so that's the good. Virtue is what is sought as a means to the good. So how do we obtain the good? So let's say you do want to complete this class. Not as an end in itself, but you do want to complete this class. There are certain means to doing that, right? So completing the class is an end, it's a goal. There are certain means for achieving that goal. You watch the videos, you take the quizzes, you study, you engage with your classmates. So there are means, right? That's how you obtain the goal. Now, virtue, in a broader sense, is how you achieve the good. Okay, so now we have to talk about virtues. This is something we don't really talk about much anymore. I don't know why, but we need virtues. So there are 3 kinds of virtues that we can talk about. 3 classifications of virtues. You might want to write this down because it's not exactly on the handout. We can talk about moral virtues. And moral virtues have been classified by Greek philosophers and later have been added to by some Christian theologians. So we can talk about the classical virtues and the theological virtues. The classical virtues include wisdom, it's the virtue of the intellect. Temperance, it's the virtue of your appetites or desires. Courage, which is the virtue of action. And justice, which is the virtue that holds all of those in balance. So wisdom, temperance, courage, justice. Those are the classical virtues. And you can Google this. There are other virtues, but those are the ones Aristotle talked about in terms of moral virtues. And these are things we should strive for. I'll talk more about them when we talk about Plato. The theological virtues include faith, hope, and love. Those were added later. Moral virtues, faith, hope, and love. There are natural virtues. This is the next classification. So moral virtues, those are things we have to work on. Natural virtues are things maybe we're born with. And Aristotle talks about things like natural intelligence. Some people are just born with greater intelligence. Others have to work on it. Some people are more beautiful than others. Physical beauty. Some people are stronger than others. So these are things we're born with, and they're virtues. Maybe you could think of it as a kind of privilege. You're born with it. You didn't do anything to get it. So virtues could be kinds of like privilege. And then there are instrumental virtues. These are the tools we need to accomplish the goal or the good. Things like clothing, shelter, food, money, this computer, my iPhone. These are tools. My car. They're needed to achieve the good. They're not the good, they're not the end in themselves, but they're means. So you can see that the moral virtues are means to achieving the good. Natural virtues are means of achieving the good. And instrumental virtues are means to achieving the good. Sometimes, though, people think these things are the good. So we'll see some theories making virtue an end in itself. And we'll see why that doesn't work. Because virtues are always for something else. Those ethical theories that make virtue an end in itself are called deontological or duty-oriented. Deon means duty. Duty-oriented. Do the right thing is a popular way of saying it. Going back to the good for a moment, there are ethical theories, namely what I mentioned earlier, based on Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. They are called teleological ethics because telos means the end or the goal. So ethical theories that make the good the primary driving concept are called teleological. Ethical theories that make virtue the primary driving concept are deontological. Now you're wondering about happiness, right? Is happiness the good? It can't be the good. Can you seek it as an end in itself? Is happiness a virtue? Is happiness a means? No. Happiness is the effect of possessing what we believe is the good. So let's say I believe, I don't know, pleasure is the good. I guess I'm going to conflate these, right? When I have pleasure, then I'm happy. Those are two different things, right? Because I think chocolate cake can give you pleasure. So when I have the chocolate cake, then I'm happy. Is that true? Is pleasure the good? Or is pleasure also an effect of eating the chocolate cake, right? Chocolate cake is not the good. I found out the hard way. Okay, happiness is the effect of possessing what we believe is the good. But guess what? What we believe could be mistaken. We could be mistaken about what the good is. And then when we realize that wasn't the good, then we might lose our happiness. We might become depressed or dissatisfied, discontent. So if we're discontent, that's a symptom that we should check our view of the good. Is my view of the good really the good? Or is it a belief that is not justified, not rationally justified? Happiness cannot be sought directly. Have you ever tried to pursue happiness? Have you ever gone to the mall and brought your $20 to try to buy some happiness? No, it doesn't work that way, right? Now it says, consider the difference between happiness and lasting happiness. So happiness is the effect of what we believe is the good. But if what we believe is the good isn't actually the good, it's not rationally justified, then we're going to lose our happiness. We want lasting happiness, or what's called contentment or joy. To have that, we have to have what is actually the good. And we have to have rational justification for what is actually the good. So that's going to take work. That means we have to think about it. That means we have to get some arguments. And in our society right now, we are more concerned with the expedient, the quick. We're busy. I want to know the answers. Just show me the good, right? No, we're going to have to think it through and give rational justification. Okay, so let's summarize. The three main concepts of ethics are the good, virtue, and happiness. We have a definition of each, and yes, I want you to know all of it. And then to pull it together, ethics as a study within philosophy is teleological, goal-oriented. It's not deontological, virtue-oriented, or utilitarian, or consequentialist is the other word I was using, happiness or pleasure-oriented. Why? Because virtues are not an end in itself. They're a means to the end. And happiness is not an end in itself. Happiness is an effect. So the good, the end in itself, tells us what virtues we need to accomplish it. And happiness is what happens when we do accomplish the good. Okay, so I'm going to pause here so that we can transition into the next two sections in the next video. The following are formal features of the good and necessary conditions for, I'm going to say, rational justification. Not just morality, but rational justification for morality. And I'll explain why in the next video. So today we talked about the definition of ethics, what ethics assumes, the three main concepts of ethics, and how that plays out in ethical theory. All right, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video.